Okay, recently we've had some readings where Jesus is casting out demons, and they're saying, "We know who you are." So I just wanted to address that because there's things that you can read, and sometimes I wonder, it's like, God, why do you allow such easily misunderstood things to be in your word, in your written word? Things like, where it talks about that, you know, that Saint Joseph had no relations with Mary until she gave birth. And it's like, isn't that baiting people to think that Mary wasn't a perpetual virgin, even though of course it's not true? I mean, is there something in the translation? Can we correct it? Because that's not what it meant. Also, the demons. So I wanted to clarify that. The demons didn't know for sure. They were guessing. They were hoping that they were saying you're the Holy One of God, but they didn't know that. They were throwing that out as trying to bait him into saying something to where they could tell if he really was. I mean, and you can tell by that, obviously. Before all those questionings, they tempted him after his 40-day fast in the fast of the desert, and every single question that Satan asked him began with, "If you are the Son of God." So obviously he didn't know who he was. They were trying to determine that. Sometimes he thought he was, sometimes he thought he wasn't, which I talk about in another video about the council in hell after the Passion. So I thought I would mention that. So no, they didn't know, but Jesus wouldn't let them speak. He wouldn't accept any kind of testimony from them. That's why he had made them be quiet, because he didn't even want them to say that as a guess. The other thing is, in reading some of the things, we had a lot of readings about St. John the Baptist. One when he was in prison, and he sent his disciples to go ask Jesus if he was the one that we were waiting for. And I've heard so many priests say, well, John the Baptist didn't really know. No, that's not true. He wasn't sending the disciples to ask Jesus that so that his doubts could be solved. He had no doubts. That's not why he was sending them. He was sending them because he knew those disciples needed to be following Jesus. So he said, go ask him, because he knew Jesus would say what Jesus would say would be right. Because St. John the Baptist obviously knew who Jesus was, from when he was sanctified in his mother's womb at 6 months in the womb. He knew who Jesus was. He had no doubts about it. The other thing too is that, because that's why he said, go and ask him who he is, because trusting that Jesus would say the right thing and shed the true light into those disciples' souls, which he did. Jesus' answer was perfect when they asked him that. And the other thing is the ministry of angels. People forget, we don't see our angels all the time. But we're not holy either, like St. John the Baptist was, which I wanted to mention. Jesus said, he's the greatest born of woman, but the least in the kingdom of God is greater than he. Well, what he's talking about is in heaven. In eternity, your salvation is fixed and done. And so the least one there is greater than any mortal, because they've already accomplished the goal. And even Mary, when she would be taken into heaven for various purposes during her life, she reverenced all the saints there, even though she's greater than all of them, because she was still in mortal life. So that's what Jesus was talking about, St. John the Baptist, and the least in this kingdom of heaven was greater than he. And the other thing is that the ministry of the angels. We're like, well, we don't see our angels all the time, so we assume that they didn't, but that's obviously not true. Like St. John the Baptist said, when he said, the one who sent me forth to preach was, who? Well, was some other person hanging out with him in the desert? No, it was an angel. John the Baptist, had very frequent relations with his angels, because he was holy enough to do it. St. Joseph had the 2 documented dreams where the angels spoke to him. Mary obviously had St. Gabriel visiting her, but those weren't the only times. I mean, from there we can deduce, yes, Mary was conversing with her angels on a regular basis every day. St. Joseph probably saw angels many more times that aren't recorded. St. John the Baptist certainly did. And they easily could send, and since their faith is so much greater than ours, we don't have the faith. We should be able to ask our guardian angels to go inspire somebody with a holy thought. Well, we should do that. We should do that because we can do that. They did it all the time. They communicated. They had faster internet than we do. They had the angels. So they were able to converse with each other according to God's will when it was permitted by God to send the angels for various purposes. So I thought I would mention that.